Hola my friends, this is Sal Montes and welcome back to my channel. Just hopping on here real quick to say that what you're about to see was originally just a segment of an entire video that I planned to make analyzing the vibes of all the different NHL teams heading into the Olympic break. But when I got around to editing, I realized that each division is about 15 minutes long, and that would come out to about an hour video. And I realized that I really don't have the equipment to handle making an hour-long video. And also, I thought it could get a little bit boring pretty fast. So instead, I'm going to be releasing each division individually as its own video. Hopefully, y'all still like it. Make sure to watch all 4 videos when they come out. It would really mean a lot to me. It ended up being a lot more effort than I realized going into it. But I had a lot of fun recording this, venting a little bit as well. So, yeah, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for this video. And yeah, thanks for watching. Moving on to the Metropolitan Division, we start out with the Carolina Hurricanes, who I would say probably have the highest vibes out of all the Metro teams right now. I do remember them having a bit of a slump earlier in January, but since then they've been really good. Thanks a lot to the fact that their rookie goaltender Brandon Bussi just seems like an absolute stud out there. It's really funny talking about all these teams and always going back to the goaltending, but really when you see some of the top teams in the league, they've got the goaltending just completely on lockdown, and so it's a very important thing, and it seems like the Carolina Hurricanes are really benefiting from this guy just having an absolutely generational run for his rookie season. And of course you have other guys really stepping up, like Sebastian Aho this past week and that overtime winner against I believe it was the LA Kings. Plus, I'm sure fans are beyond excited that Seth Jarvis was just named an injury replacement for Team Canada. I remember when the initial rosters came out, he was definitely called one of the bigger snubs for sure. So yeah, he's playing for Team Canada. The Carolina Hurricanes are on a 10-point streak, going 8-0-2 or something like that in their past 10 games. So it seems like Carolina's rocking right now, and I would expect them to keep on trucking. The Columbus Blue Jackets, again, breakout season last year. It was a very emotional season, and they come into this year hoping to keep on building on top of that. Not just being a fringe playoff team, but a wild card, maybe even a top 3 divisional seed. And then they're just not that good. It was really crushing to see that for sure. But even so, I think a lot of people were not expecting Dean Evison to get fired and be replaced, much less be replaced by a retired Rick Bowness. But Don Waddell, he knows how to cook. And since then, I think they've gone 10-1. I'm pretty sure they've lost 1 game in their last 10 or 11. They went from the very bottom of the Metro to, now just a couple points behind Boston and Buffalo for those wildcard seeds. Zach Werenski is looking dominant again, and, he's headed off to Italy to play for Team USA. So it really does seem like he's just going to keep on trucking and, continue his hot streak after he comes back. I believe he leads all defensemen, at the very least, in goals, maybe in points also. I can't remember, but yeah, the vibes have been much better the last couple of weeks in Columbus ever since Rick Bowness came into the scene. And as I was saying when I was talking about the Ottawa Senators, I really do see those 2 teams being the main ones really fighting it out with the Bostons, with the Buffaloes, to see which one ends up in that wild card spot. I'm very excited to see what ends up happening with the Blue Jackets after we come back from the break. But now a team who I would probably say that fans wouldn't mind if the break ended up being a year long rather than just 3 weeks. We have the New Jersey Devils. Oh, the New Jersey Devils, man. This has been a rough year for them for sure. Every year it seems they go on a bit of a run. It looks like they have the pieces, right? They got their stars, and they're just a couple steps away from really breaking through. But then the next season comes back, and it just seems like they've taken 5 steps backwards. I know there's a lot of frustration with the franchise guy, Jack Hughes, just continuing to have a lot of health issues. That's something that I personally don't, I don't know anything about medicine. I don't know anything about sports medicine, injuries, all that stuff. So I just think it's really a shame that a talent like that can't be on the ice often enough to make such a big impact for that team. So yeah, I am assuming that New Jersey Devils fans they're taking this Olympic break as a nice personal break for their mental sanity. It does a body good to relax every once in a while, and I know Devils games can be pretty stressful. So if you're a Devils fan, take care of yourself during these couple weeks. Rest up. I don't know what's gonna happen after we come back. Ideally they have a nice little bounce back. At the very least, Jack Hughes is going to be playing in the Olympics for Team USA, so hopefully he'll be all good and ready to play for the Devils when we come back. That's really all I'm hoping for New Jersey, but the vibes could be a lot better. Next, we have the New York Islanders, they've had a pretty good season overall, I would say. Matthew Schaefer, it looks like he is that guy. I wasn't too sure how he was going to impact the New York Islanders, but it seems like it's been what fans have been waiting for, for such a long time. He is playing minutes and having responsibilities that top guys in the league, like the Quinn Hugheses, like the Cale Makars, he is having to take on those really tough assignments and doing really, really well. And on top of that, you have other guys on the roster like, Anthony Duclair, finally kind of finding their game again after some very intense moments in seasons past with like the coaching staff and Patrick Ross. So I keep hearing a lot of great stuff about the fans going out to support the Islanders. So that's really awesome to hear. And then you can't talk about the Islanders without also really mentioning probably who I consider the most underrated player, at the very least the most underrated goalie in the league, Ilya Sorokin. He is really just the unsung MVP for that team, and I'm really happy that he's been having another breakout season. He's incredible. As for a team that's not having a breakout season and definitely not having the best vibes for sure, we have the New York Rangers, and I mean, kind of like New Jersey, it's getting to a point, like for example, with my parody videos, where I just don't know where else to go with the New York Rangers. It seems like the Rangers were poised to really go for it again this season, and then it all just kind of started falling apart. You begin a season not being able to score like a single goal in 3-4 of the first home games, and that eventually evolves into New York not being able to win at home like at all. And we've had it all. We end up having the infamous letter again from GM Chris Drury about how the Rangers are stepping into a bit of a retool period. Along with that, we get the information that they are going to be moving on from Artemi Panarin, longtime Ranger, and arguably, their bigger star aside from, Fox and Shesterkin, really. I never want to generalize and say that fans of a team are all on, say, Team Tank, and they're all 100% on board with, losing as much as they can so they get better odds at the lottery or whatever. But it definitely seems like, the Rangers, Rangers fans, they're probably okay with kind of letting this season finish out and see what their luck is at getting Gavin McKenna. So I can't remember if it was last year or maybe a year ago, or maybe it's just a yearly occurrence. But it always seems like the Flyers, once we hit the second half of the season, once we're, after the new year, at some point down the line, they just end up having, that late, kind of mid-late season collapse. And I know that there's a lot of reasons to it for sure. I mean, with Philly, you can't really ignore the fact that the goaltending is just not there. Dan Vladar is okay, and he's a solid backup for sure. But then afterwards, I know Sam Ersson had an okay moment last year, but he's never really found his groove. And this season in particular has been rough for him. But also, from what I can tell, there's a lot of friction with the head coach, the front office, some of the guys on the team. It just seems like what it feels is happening with Philly. It feels like nobody's on the same page. Like, I know there's a lot more to coaching. I know there's a lot more to developing a star player, but, you look at guys like Celebrini in San Jose and Bedard in Chicago, and, those teams, they're kind of just letting them fly, letting them run, and yeah, they'll make mistakes, but they're growing into real stars. And meanwhile, you have, the people in Philly, the coaching in Philly, restricting Michkov to like 7-8 minutes a night, something like that. It's crazy. Now, moving on to a team that I thought would be kind of in the same spot as the Flyers and in that bit of a retool, rebuild kind of mode, we have the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are currently sitting at second in the Metro. Obviously, you have Sidney Crosby, doing what an all-timer, what an absolute legend does, and he continues to play like it was 15 years ago, and nothing has changed for him. But on top of that, you have guys like Malkin, like Erik Karlsson, just turning back the clock and having really strong seasons as well. And it's not just the veterans that are carrying this team. For the longest time, Pittsburgh was seen as the Pittsburgh retirement home, one of the oldest teams in the league, which, by the way, I will never forgive Ron Hextall for that. But in a matter of a few years, Kyle Dubas has done a really great job at injecting a lot of youth back into this team. You have guys like Ben Kindle, who was, I wouldn't call it an off-the-board pick in the draft, but he was definitely not the guy that most people thought the Penguins would get in that first pick that they had in the first round. But while he was a bit of a puzzling pick, he's looked like an absolute stud for his first season. Then you go and get a guy like Chinakhov, who, I don't know what was going on in Columbus. Maybe that was part of why Evison had to go, because he has been incredible for Pittsburgh, and it's crazy to me that the Columbus couldn't find some use for him to make a run. But either way, I'm really happy seeing him in Pittsburgh now. And you have plenty of unsung heroes as well. You have the Manthas, you have the Blake Lassots, the bottom six guys just really just grinding through this season, providing a real tough backbone to this team that I think has led to a lot of its success. But anyways, I'll stop with the Pittsburgh Penguins glazing. Obviously, as you can tell, as a fan, the vibes are pretty good. And so I don't know what it's going to look like after the Olympics, because with Pittsburgh, they can be a streaky team, and if they're playing well, that's great. But then if you kind of cut it off at some point during that hot streak and they come back, it always seems like it takes them a while to get going back again. So we'll see what happens. But overall, vibes seem pretty solid with Pittsburgh right now. The Washington Capitals are a team that I remember coming back, after my move and getting all my stuff back and getting back into the routine of going through the different teams and writing down notes about news and what's going on. And I just remember feeling like, okay, so the Washington Capitals had a breakout year last year. It was an incredible season. And they come back this year, and when I started keeping up with them again, they were okay. They were upper half of the Metro, really. But since then, they've kind of just hung around there without much progress, really. A lot of their success this season, obviously, on the shoulders of guys like Tom Wilson having an incredible year. He's a first-time Olympian, I'm pretty sure, with Team Canada this season, as well as Logan Thompson. Really great to see Logan Thompson, being in the Canada lineup this time. I don't know how he wasn't chosen for the Four Nations roster last year, especially given that last year was an even better season for the Capitals. But it's really great to see those guys having incredible years and it really paying off. Now they get to go and represent their country in the Olympics, which is really neat. Caps are just kind of middling right now. We'll see where they're at when they come back, but they have a lot of a fight left if they do want to sneak into one of those wild card positions. And personally, I feel like a team like Columbus or even the Ottawa Senators are just, they're a little bit more primed to, fight for those last wildcard spots, in my opinion. Hey y'all, Future Sal here. As I might have explained at the beginning of the video, this entire 4-division video that I planned to make ended up being a lot longer than I realized. I'm still not done editing every single piece of the video, so that's why I decided, hey, instead of releasing one long, boring, hour-long video, how about I just release them by division? That way I can get some content out to you all a little bit more frequently this coming week. So that's what I'm going to be doing, which means I'm going to cut it off for today here, but stay tuned. The next divisions coming up should be popping up in your feed pretty soon. And as always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what y'all's opinions were on the video, what opinions you have of your own team, and let's have a discussion down in the comment section. I always appreciate those. And as always, remember that kindness is free to give, so go out and spread some today.